Okay, the unknown daughter of Pharaoh, blood feud, and the rise of a common prince. Yeah, this is about to get real interesting. I'm really excited. What's going on? This is the King Cam Ujumbe Podcast. Ujumbe means message. Yes, we are back. Yeah, I took a week off. Even though I was off, I was still on. I was still putting things together. I was still doing my homework. And yeah, we're going to talk about the unknown daughter of Amenemhat III. We've been focused on Sobekneferu, but in Andrew Collins' book, The First Female Pharaoh, Sobekneferu, the goddess of the seven stars, he goes into the life and reign of Sobekneferu and everything around it. Okay. We talking about Egypt's first confirmed female pharaoh. We're going to deal with chapters 10 through 15. These chapters are pivotal in understanding her sense of power and the challenges she faced. This has been great. All right. If you are enjoying this stuff so far, if you're enjoying this new information so far, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. But we about to get a little bit deeper into this. All right. Ancient Egypt, of course, is one of the most advanced and enduring civilizations of the ancient world. It has a structured monarchy that placed great significance on divine rulership, while the pharaoh was the supreme ruler, the Insibiti or the Simitawi. Okay. Um, Queens played a crucial role in ensuring the stability and continuity of the throne, far from being just their wives, or they held political, religious, and ceremonial authority, with even ascending to the ruler power. And so we discussed queenship in Egypt was primarily determined by lineage, marriage, and religious endorsement, with many queens originating from the royal bloodline, like Sobekneferu. And the priesthood played a fundamental role and a foundational role in legitimizing a queen's authority through sacred rituals and divine proclamations, reinforcing their role as intermediaries between the Neteru, the ancestors, and the people. What's going on, Blue? All right, what's going on? Greetings, everyone. Greet everybody as you come in. I'm very excited about this. I'm excited about everything, though. That's me. I love learning. Okay, if you love learning, we're going to learn together, right? Now, who was the questions? Who was Neferptah? Okay, who was their mother? Did Amenemhat the third want somebody else to rule? And was Amenemhat the fourth not royalty? See, we found out a few things. Okay, we found out that Sobekneferu had a sister. Now, get this, y'all. Get this. Let me get out the screen with it. Let me see if I can close this. Let me remove that. Get this. Sobekneferu not only had a sister, but she had sisters. I'm reading this as you guys are getting into it. I'm reading it too. Sobekneferu had sisters. Okay, and we know, of course, being born of this world, you have to have a mother, but for some reason, the mother is not really put into play right now. Not really mentioned that much. I don't know. And I'm finding out that her, Amenemhat the fourth, may not be her brother for real. All right, man, let's get to it. Yeah, it gets really ignorant. It gets really interesting and ignorant. And so, yeah, her brother, the guy that took the throne, may not be him. All right. So today, okay, get comfortable, get something to write on, something to write with. Today, we're going to discuss chapters 10 to 15 of the book. We're going to talk about the seed of destruction. We're going to talk about the mystery of a magical formula, the king's daughters, the king's choice, his stepson, and we're going to answer a few questions. If you got a few questions, go ahead and hold those questions to the very end. Of course, I love the comments and chime in, but if you have questions, burning questions, we're going to answer those at the end. And we got some shout outs. And yes, I am checking roll. So today, we get something to write on, something to write with. We're going to talk about chapters 10 through 15. We're going to deal with the seeds of destruction, the mystery of the magical formula, king's daughters, the king's choice, his stepson, and we're going to get into a few questions. All right, now Collins in chapter 9 week before last, Collins asked these questions. How exactly did Sobekneferu come to be in this very powerful and also very privileged position? Because I don't think she was next in line, y'all. I don't think she was next. And so he goes in to ask, whom might she have had to supplicate or alternately eradicate, take out to reach her true destiny as ruler of the two lands? What possible role did her father play? Play in her future destiny? And who was her mother? How did she come into this powerful position? Who did she possibly have to take out to be Sematawi? And who was her mama now? All right. Part 3, Seeds of Destruction. Now, in 1956, in the book, according to the book, they found the undisturbed tomb of Neferu Ptah. That means undisturbed means nobody has broken into it. Nobody stole anything from it. And knowledge of her place in history has previously come from the discovery in the late 19th century of a strange makeshift sarcophagus constructed alongside that of her father. So she was intended to be buried next to her father in the pyramid in Hara. So she was buried next to her father. So yeah, according to this, I really believe that she was next. Neferu Ptah, I think her father, Amenemhat III, I think her father was trying to position her to be the next pharaoh. Not Amenemhat IV and not Sobekneferu. Why is that? Why is that? Yeah, she was buried next to her father. So it gets interesting, y'all. Now, get this. She was buried wearing a beautiful collar called the Wasek collar, complete with a beaded cord and counterpoise, along with a unique necklace that had as its counterpiece a large barrel-shaped carnelian stone known as the Sworet bead. Everybody couldn't put that on either. Now, they're trying to say it's a different kind of bird, but if you look close, that is not a regular bird. That is Heru. That is a falcon. That is emblematic of her being in power. Okay, look at it. All right. So yeah, she was buried wearing this. Okay, the princess had additionally worn 2 bead necklaces, bead armlets on each arm, as well as a pair of anklets made of gold and carnelian. Covering her body would have been an apron of finance and blue frit beads, complete with a girdle of this beads that included a small pendant of the shape of a hawk or a swallow. A lot of people want to call it a swallow, but that's Horus. That's Heru. And only pharaohs will wear that, or somebody who's next up is wearing that. Everybody couldn't put that on. Okay, it wasn't a fashion statement. This was a proclamation that she was supposed to be next. Nefer Ptah, Sobekneferu's sister, had this on. Okay, and this is found in the Museum of Cairo. Now, her sarcophagus, as well as several other objects found in the tomb, bore inscriptions with her name. Get this. Again, everybody doesn't have all this going on, right? So her name is enclosed in the royal shim or cartouche. We know when it's inside that circle, when it's inside the cartouche, that means this person is official. This person was and is a pharaoh. Everybody did not have that designation. Was she supposed to be next in line? I think her father really wanted her to be next. And we're going to break this meta nature down in a few minutes. I got that. But if you're enjoying the content, hit the like and subscribe button if you're liking it so far, because we're about to go further into detail with this. But yeah, everybody did not put that on. Let me see what's going on in the chat. What's going on? All right, I see you, Mo. Greetings, everyone. Just leaving my daughter's volleyball, and we headed home. Can't miss this message. My question is, Mo, did she win? I'm saying, all right. Love the family, man. Matter of fact, we went to see Prince Cam. He came from Langston University. He ran his 400. He did his thing. Yeah, they won. It's all right. Yeah, that's what's up. But yeah, so everybody didn't have that. We are going to break this meta nature down. We are going to break this down. It's very, it's popping out. Okay, I can't unsee it, right? So if I see it, I want everybody else to get understanding. Okay, the mystery of the magical formula, because it's something about the lettering. It's something about the phrases that they put together. Okay. According to Collins, one of the most curious features about Neferu Ptah's tomb was the funerary bands of gold leaf that had once adorned the rectangular coffin. They had, get this, they had hieroglyphic spells meant to help the deceased pass successfully into the duat. Okay, we talked about the chambers under the pyramids a few weeks ago, and it's physically and symbolically something that deals with going through the gateways into the realm of the ancestors, or the duat. They were, in this case, the hieroglyphic spells, the writing were part of the coffin text. It was part of the coffin text. So the coffin texts are, get this, are a collection of magical funerary spells written on coffins that at the beginning of the first intermediate period, some of which are particularly derived from the pyramid text. By the 12th dynastic period, during this time that we're talking about, these are different. Okay, everybody's saying it, everybody's writing the same words and phrasing, but this particular word and phrasing is different. Okay, Mo says she had two practices next tournament on 26. Okay, that's what's up. All right, so these are different. Okay, why is it a mystery? Why is this different? It's a mystery because the composition and lettering would not be found anywhere until centuries later, 350 years later, in the New Kingdom. Nobody had this. Nobody had this script or this form of writing. Nobody had this in their graves or in their coffins or anything like that. Nobody had it. Guess who had it though? Okay, I'll get to it in a second though. Remember, the tomb was undisturbed. Okay, it was undisturbed, right? According to German archaeologist Wolfram Grajewski, he noticed the same arrangement of magic spells seen on Neferu Ptah's coffin was present on somebody else's coffin. Okay, it was undisturbed, right? Her tomb was undisturbed. Magical formula. Who had it? Hatshepsut. Yes, sir. She keeps coming back, y'all. Hatshepsut. Man, I really think that Hatshepsut she really loved the ancestors. Okay, she really revered them and respected Sobekneferu and her family, even to the point to where them final phases of life, she wanted to line up. She wanted to line those magical spells, those magical words, those magical phrases with the past to what she would call the present. But get this, that was 350 years from Sobekneferu's family to Hatshepsut. 350 years. That's a long time. That's a long time. That's crazy. Okay, and it's still mind-boggling to me when we hear about these ages that come and go, that goes, that we say thousands of years, we say hundreds of years, but 350 years, the United States of America as a country is not that old yet. Think about that. So Kemet as an empire was 5,000 years old before Greece and Rome showed up. So Hatshepsut basically wanted to align herself with Sobekneferu, the first female pharaoh, and her family, right? So what is important is that she may well have deliberately sought out to use this specific set of magical formula for her sarcophagus, in which her soul will begin her journey into the duat. Okay, so And she wanted, according to the author, according to Collins, she wanted to align herself not so much with Neferu Ptah, but with her sister Sobekneferu. I think, according to the author, he said, I think is a very plausible explanation and one that backs up the growing awareness that Hatshepsut was greatly inspired by Sobekneferu and so wanted to associate herself with her forerunner, not just in life, but also in death. Yeah. So Sobekneferu had an admirer 350 years later. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. So, just like I promised, hit the like button. We're about to break this down. Man. And I'm using, of course, the Book of Coming For by Day. There's other versions of it. I know. But I think this is kind of, it's very practical, right? Now, but before I get into that, I got a question. I got a question. All right. Now, to be honest, do you guys like the live sessions for the or pre-recorded? Like and comment below. Do you guys like the live sessions or the pre-recorded? Okay. Do you guys like that? Let me know. Do you guys like the live sessions or the pre-recorded? Because I'm trying to, we're making some adjustments and I want this to be an enjoyable experience for everybody. All right. Now, the life of Neferu Ptah in the book, she's different. Okay. And so much that we find out about her a little bit later, right? And so in chapter 10, Neferu Ptah means beauties of the god Ptah. It is the name constructed in the same manner as Sobekneferu, okay, which we know as the beauties of the god Sobek. Okay, now let's get to it. We're gonna break this down. All right, hit the like button. We're gonna break this down. What we're gonna do, once again, I'm using this book, okay, the Book of Coming For by Day, and we're gonna go from left to right. All right, give me a thumbs up. All right, here we go. Now, on the left side, on this side here, of course, we have in the middle Neferu Ptah holding not a tambourine, but more of a shaker, right? And it has Heteru as a symbol there. Okay. Brother Joe said, I like the live sessions, but I like the lessons any way I can get it. We crave right here. We're learning together. So just let me know. Brother Ferguson said he liked the lives. All right. So from left to right. Now, on the top, okay, you see those wavy lines there? That means in or of. You see that little leaf of that bird? That word means Su or herself. I can't really get that top part, but we're going to do left and right. So of herself, those two little bowls means Nebet or Lord or Nebu, Lord of Lords. So she this is in Su Neb in Nefer, okay, Nefer, Te Eta, okay, Pet, and then her name in the Shem, okay, Neferu. It said Neferu, Pet He, a Ptah, Neferu Ptah. And then right here, Da'ank, Tetef. Meaning this, okay, we're on the left-hand side. Those wavy lines there on the left-hand side means of herself. She is the Lord of herself. Nefer, she's from this place or from a place, and she is Nefer, okay, beautiful, Nefer, eternally beautiful, okay. So Te'eta, this phrase right here, this section right here with the bold snake and this little line here, that means eternity. Of herself, the Lord from a beautiful place, from eternity. She is the Neferu Pethe. Okay, Pet, that means heaven, He, eternal. Okay, of course, that's Neferu Ptah. D, okay, given, D-unk, okay, given life of his body. Okay, so this is an eternal proclamation saying that She is the Neferu Ptah. This is a proclamation. This is, bro, this is before Sobekneferu. Okay. So somebody has already proclaimed her as the queen, the Insubiti, the Neb Nebu, right? The Lord of Lords kind of thing. Okay, the king. So she's coming from this beautiful place, eternity. She is a beautiful, she's Neferu pet, Neferu, beautiful heaven, eternity. So the beautiful place of heaven eternally, and the Ankh, the given life or chosen or granting life of his body. So on this side is talking about her, okay, basically reinvigorating that lineage, reinvigorating that legacy. Okay, she was born into this. Okay, so that is the left hand side. Okay, that is the left hand side. On the right, okay, we have the little hook there called Saka. Saka, that means to gather. Okay, to gather. And this section here with the little line, the dot, okay, and that little section right there, that basically means Hotep or Hetepu, to gather in peace or to gather offerings. Okay, she came for a purpose, to gather offerings, right? And this section here, that little line there, that means to bind. Okay, that means heb, to bind or to connect. That little I with the little line, that is Ren, her name of it. Okay, that is Shu again. That's another word of Su, and Nebet, the Lord, to bring life again together. So to bring life, and in this little circle with the line right there, to like or ma, and to rise, and of course of his body. Now, here it is. Okay, Seka Hetepu, Heb, Ren. Okay, Ren Nam. Okay, Ren Su Nebet. That means to bring. Seka, Ank Saka, Ma, Mara, Mara, to rise. Tetef. Okay, this section is talking about her lineage. She's basically born into this. This on the B side, on the right side, is talking about what she is here to do. But we're talking about a purpose, to gather peace. Okay, to Seka, to gather. Hatepu, peace, to connect. Okay, Heb, that's connect. Ren, her name. Okay, Su, it or herself. Okay, as the Lord. Okay, as king, to bring life, to gather and to rise like his body or the Neteru. So she was here to basically realign and bring back balance and peace to Kemet. But I don't think she was able to fulfill that. I don't think so, because as we know, she did not become. She didn't become the Insubiti. Even though the titles, she was chosen. She was chosen to be king of Egypt. Neferu Ptah, on record as we see, was supposed to be the next king, the next Insubiti. All right, but I don't think that happened. All right, so Neferu Ptah means the beauty of the god Ptah. It's the name constructed in the same manner as Sobekneferu, but Ptah at the end, right? Even though the princess' personal name might suggest her connection with Ptah, the Neteru Ptah, whose main temple is in Amenemhat or Memphis, her religious interests lay elsewhere, though. Her name says Ptah, but her actions is saying something different. Y'all, these people are very complicated. These people are very complicated. All right, so both, get this, both Amenemhat and his daughter Neferu Ptah in the temple faces were toward a snake-headed goddess Renenuet. In the temple, they were facing. Her name says Ptah, but they're giving reverence to Renenuet, suggesting they were to address her directly as part of a ritual. Why would they do that? If Amenemhat was basically a moon in front, Neferu Ptah, basically beauties of Ptah, beauties of heaven and things like that, why would they be out here dealing with Amenemhat? Okay, first of all, who was Amenemhat? Okay, yeah, this goes. This is different. Let me see. Yeah, Amenemhat was a significant goddess in the ancient Egyptian religion, known as the goddess of fertility, the harvest and nourishment. Fertility. Was Neferu Ptah seeking aid to bear a child? What do y'all think? Was she out there trying to seek aid to bear a child? What do you think? Like and comment below. This is different. I don't know what to make of, y'all. So Neferu Ptah and the Amenemhat temple. Yeah, it gets complicated. Why? Because these people were different. They had different motives and different ideas. Neferu Ptah is shown at the Mahdi temple as a young princess wearing a diadem with plumes similar to that worn in death by Princess Hiseturu Renet, daughter of Hathor and Dendera. So she had a headdress designed for the daughter of Heteru. And you see in her hand the little instrument dealing with Heteru. Okay, and so that is called the sistrum. It was an instrument sacred to Hathor or Heteru. Her name says Ptah. She's over there at the Amenemhat temple with Heteru in her hand. Man. So this sistrum was an instrument sacred to Hathor. Okay. And guess what? And somebody asked about the connection between the Ethiopian church and Kemet. That's one of them. That's one of them. Okay. That sistrum, okay, the monks and priests of the Ethiopian church, even today, use it. They're very similar to those that we use for religious activity in Kemet. I told you, Kemet is part of Africa. Ethiopia is the grandmother of Kemet. The Nile Valley was one culture. They may have had different dialects, but they had a very similar culture, even in religious practices. So the princess' apparent association with Heteru would have probably been essential in the leading up to her being a royal wife. Now, was she seeking aid to bear a child? Yeah, I think so. As an incarnation of the goddess Heteru, she would have been expected to give birth to the living representation of Horus. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Who is she supposed to marry? It's getting different. Who was she? Who was available for her to marry? Yeah. Who was she available to marry at this time? Okay. Yeah, it's wow. It's the reality is, I told you, we mentioned it before. We're going to lean into a little bit more, but Amenemhat was not their brother. Amenemhat IV was not their brother. So the father, who's legitimate heir to the throne, the father wanted his daughter to reign as pharaoh, but she had to marry, right? So she had to marry this random cat named Amenemhat IV. But why does this dude have this guy's name and that's not his son for real? We're going to talk about that in a second. All right, the two kings' daughters. But before we get into two kings' daughters, have you heard of the tale of the two ladies? Yeah, Brother Mo asked about it. You want to know about this story? We're about to get into it next week. Yeah, we're going to talk about Enigmatic and Wajet next week. Yes, sir. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about that. I think the fam really enjoys it. Enjoys when we kind of go off into these side quests discussing different mythology and folk tales of African in Kemet, and that's one of them. We're going to get into the tale of two ladies, all right? All right, so we have to assume that Sobekneferu formed an integral part of the royal dynasty as the seventh and final ruler of the 12th dynasty. There were 8, but she was the 7th and final. Seven. Huh. That means something too. All right. But according to Collins, this seems confirmed from the inscription on the status base found in Tel Gazer, which tells us that that Sobekneferu was the king's daughter of his body. That is the same title given to Neferu Ptah in the inscriptions describing her. So Neferu Ptah had that. Let me see if I can go back to it. Right here. Right here, that means of his body. Okay. So she had that same similar designation. So I'm trying to find out, how did she get that title? How did she get that designation? Yeah. Because was Neferu Ptah living at the time? Was she living at the time? All right. So Sobekneferu is also named king's daughter. Also, Sobekneferu directly associates herself with her father within inscriptions found in the labyrinth. So get this. We talked about chambers under the pyramids, but there is legit a labyrinth in that area. There is a labyrinth, or it was. Okay. So the people of Greece and Rome knew about a labyrinth, and they wrote about it and they talked about it. There were inscriptions with her name as the king's daughter. The thing is, she mentioned directly Sobekneferu as well as Neferu Ptah directly mentions that they were the king's daughter. They didn't associate themselves directly with Amenemhat IV. They always said the king's daughter. You know, daddy's girls or something. I think it's something else. But yeah, we talked about the unveiling mysteries and secret chambers and ancient initiations. We talked about that, but there is a labyrinth. Okay. And yeah, the majestic gateway. We're going to talk about Hatshepsut's temple really soon. We're going to talk about that. And the majestic gateway to the natural roots of the gods and the afterlife. So we are going to get further into detail with Hatshepsut's Jeseru. We're going to talk about that. But now, the question is, since they're saying they're the king's daughter, did y'all, based on what you know so far, did Amenemhat want someone else to rule, more specifically his daughters, and not him? Because we only see the royal cartouche around her name along the relief in the Amenemhat in that temple. And so I don't think he wanted Amenemhat IV to rule. I don't think so. I think he wanted his daughters to take over. Okay. But, and get this, y'all. I know I'm going ahead of myself. Get this. So Sobekneferu during this time, while Neferu Ptah, while her older sister, because Neferu Ptah is the older sister, while she was living, Sobekneferu's name was not mentioned anywhere. Yeah. So that lets me know that the father wanted the eldest daughter to rule. Okay. So why the New Egyptologists don't want to bring the labyrinth with all the ancient names? The reason why is because one reason is it's ruined beyond repair. Okay, ruined beyond repair. They kind of got an idea or outline of it, but they don't like the Sphinx or like the other temples that are up. It's gone. It's like bits and pieces like this, right? Yeah, his daughters did have the juice, and they had the lineage. Mo says his daughters had the juice. They had the lineage. They had it. So there was no way for somebody else to come in and say, "Hey, I'm going to rule." No, he had 2 daughters. Well, okay, we're going to find out he had multiple daughters. Okay, he had a lot of girls, but his oldest daughter, Neferu Ptah, at the time was living, who was in line to be the next pharaoh. Sobekneferu's name wasn't mentioned anywhere yet. Okay, yeah, his daughters did have the Jews though. All right. So according to the Amenemhat temple and from Neferu Ptah's pyramid, the king was okay with this new progressive attitude towards kingship. This might have paved the way, though, by putting her name in the Shem. This might have paved the way for Sobekneferu's own eventual reign. This probably lightened the blow, probably prepared them, okay, because they have that title, King's Daughter. They have the Shem around their name. So it makes it clear that the chosen successor was Neferu Ptah, okay, and not Sobekneferu. So the female successor on record, okay, was Neferu Ptah because she was the king's eldest daughter and the natural heir to the throne. That's what it was. That's what it was. Okay. So Sobekneferu may have been a few years younger, but she was not the oldest. Neferu Ptah was. Okay. So the question is, though, who was Amenemhat? And how did he fit into the royal family? And who was their mother? Matter of fact, it's not even on here. Who was his mama? Because for some reason, this dude, he was able to slide up in. He was able to make his way in here. He wasn't that person. So dealing with the king's daughter, tell the 2 ladies we're going to deal with that. Next week, the king's stepson. We're going to answer a few questions and a few shout outs, and I'm still checking roll. All right. Don't miss out. Now, what happened to her? The fate of Neferu Ptah. What do you think happened to her? Because she was in position. She was in position to take over. What do you think? What do you think happened to her? It's sad, but obvious answer is that she may have died fairly young. She may have died young. She may have died young. Matter of fact, she may have died before her father died. Her father put everything in place, but she passed away before he did. Okay? And if she had been chosen to rule alongside Amenemhat, then her demise must have thrown the royal dynasty not only in the period of mourning, but into turmoil. Because remember, we mentioned that Sobekneferu had to go through special trials and special initiation processes. I believe if Neferu Ptah's name was already in the cartouche, she went through that process for real. And Sobekneferu had to go through a makeshift process, right? And so, yeah, she died young. And even before her father, Collins, the author, stated that if she had been officially chosen to rule alongside Amenemhat, her demise must have brought everything out of control. But so Amenemhat the fourth, y'all, was a plan B. He wasn't even in the equation. She died young. She was positioned to be ruler. We're just gonna have him marry this dude over here. So the choice is clear. Okay, she was the successor is Neferu Ptah and the natural heir to the throne. And so Now, because right now, during this time, Sobekneferu was a priestess. She was a priestess. She wasn't even dealing with anything like this. Of course, we mentioned that her name and her title, Merit, okay, beloved, okay, loved of Ra and all those things, that was priestess name. So at this time, while this was happening, while Neferu Ptah was in position or being positioned to be Pharaoh, Sobekneferu was a priestess. Okay, Sobekneferu was a priestess. And so if Neferu Ptah really was the rightful heir to the throne of Egypt, it seems likely that she was the most eligible and she was prepared. But the question is, what did she get sick? Did she have an accident? Yeah. Hey, Miss Haynes, what's going on? Good afternoon. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. But yeah, what happened to her? All right, because Sobekneferu was over there being a priestess, and they had found out there was two different mothers now. Yes, indeed. So of course, we understand that Amenemhat may or may not be directly related. But what about the daughters? Okay, what about the daughters? And so I think that all that has goes into play. The mother, what was their mother's lineage? Where were they from? Yeah. Mo saying someone may have wanted her to be removed. Who was that someone, Mo? So, yeah, I think somebody got their hands dirty. All right. So, what was their mother? Did Amenemhat want somebody else to rule? We already know that, and we're gonna find out was Amenemhat the fourth not royal, not like us. Okay, the Queen Mother. Yes, the Queen Mother, the fate of the dynasty in chapter 12. Amenemhat has the third principal wife, who was presumably also his queen for much of his reign, her name was Aat. Her name was Aat. Aat. Okay, which means the great one. Sadly, we don't know anything else about her. So, the principal mother, the Queen Mother, Aat, had these two daughters. Okay, we know for sure she had Neferu Ptah. But we also know that she did not have Amenemhat the fourth. That wasn't her son. Yep, the great one. And of course, we know that she died before her daughter passed and her husband passed and all these things. So we're going to get into the Black Pyramid. We're going to go into detail about that and the Ceneret Pyramid. And because there is a false door in the Black Pyramid, there is a false door, okay, bearing her name. Okay, in the when they explored the Black Pyramid, at the Dashur, okay, the Black Pyramid was built in it was found in the late 19th century. And even though they didn't reach the tomb on the inside, they didn't reach the tomb of Aat, he did find some items with her name on it. And it included the stone false door, okay, which is with the fragment of an offering table. Now, the false door, a lot of people would try to say that was designed to fool the grave robbers, right? No, it wasn't. The false door was designed for the deceased to go into the realm of the ancestors. Okay, that was what the false door was for. It was to go from this physical plane into the realm of the ancestors. It was for them. And this particular false door had the name of Aat on it, the queen mother. So, on entering its interior, he saw before him a large sarcophagus, various pieces of funerary equipment, that were scattered about the place, including broken canopic chest or jars, complete with 7 alabaster cases. And from it, the inscription of the false door, it appeared that the name Aat had born, it had the title King's Wife. Okay. So on that false door, on this door, not this one, but on the false door, it had King's Wife. Okay. And united with the white crown of Upper Egypt. While examination of her remains revealed that she died young too. The queen mother, she died at about 35 years old, according to their record. So she died young. Her oldest daughter died young. That's crazy. All right. So as they did that, she may have been 35. Her aunt was clearly the important royal wife and was no doubt the mother of one or more of the king's children. And so the confusing matter was the second wife. Yeah. Yeah. Amenemhat, he had quite a few wives. he had a second wife, the other wife. Okay. While going through the Black Pyramid, y'all, they uncovered the tomb of his second wife. Okay. But this was not Aat. This was somebody else. And she, according to their sources, she was 25. Wow, this man, he ruled for 45 years and his wives died young. Yeah, he had another wife. Yeah, these folks are something, right? Now, so there's another belief showing Amenemhat IV standing with another woman named Hetepti. She is referred to as the king's mother, not Amenemhat III's mother, but the non-royal person, his mother. Yeah, most say King Amenemhat IV, the reason why they died so young was because he got on their nerves real bad. Yeah, he was probably terrible. Do something else, woman. Man. But yeah. And so Hetepti, identity is unknown, of the unknown royal wife buried in Amenemhat III's pyramid at Djerser. So we don't know if that Hetepti is the other wife, but what we do know is that Amenemhat, she is identified to be his mother. Now, it doesn't say who his father is. Okay, according to this research, according to Egyptology and all that, all they can say is they know who his mother is. They have some speculation though, but based on this, okay, Neferuptah's mother is Aat. Neferuptah's father is Amenemhat III, the king. She was in line to rule. Sobekneferu, who's her mother, was she also the mother? We don't know. So was Amenemhat IV not royal? Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. So somehow, some way, this man or this boy got lucky. He came in just in time when all this was happening to become the last king of the 12th dynasty. But he was not, according to sources, he's not royalty. Okay, he wasn't born into it. But before we get into that, got a question. All right, this is fun. Beach vacation or mountain retreat? Beach vacation or mountain retreat? I tell you, I like to be on the beach. I like to be outside with my feet in the water. I'm not gonna lie to you. What do y'all think? Beach vacation or mountain retreat? because we're about to talk about his kinfolk. We're gonna talk about who he is for real and how did he show up. Beach vacation or mountain retreat. Okay, like and comment below. All right, Amenemhat IV non-royal blood. This is what the book saying. The book is saying Amenemhat IV, Sobekneferu's successor, was not royalty. That's why they were saying in their inscription. That's why they were saying in their writing. Let me get this. That's why they were saying the king's daughter. The king, they were not associating themselves with him. They was associating themselves with their father. He said, beach vacation. I'm not about to. Yeah, stuff falling down. No, I can't, and I'm too clumsy. I can't go up the mountains and then tear up my ankles. No. Beach vacation. Yeah. So I mean, they you notice that when they're actually saying this, okay. No, Neferu Ptah is out the picture, but this young man is still in the mix, right? So, according to the scholar, according to Kim Rylat, okay, he proposed the rightful heir was Neferu Ptah. Of course, we think so too. Amenemhat IV was then picked to be the country's male ruler, despite of his non-royal blood, with Neferu Ptah ruling by his side. So they weren't like siblings or something like that, being married to one another. This person came in from outside the family. So they weren't really brother and sister. Okay, they weren't. And so Roy advances the theory that Amenemhat IV was related to, get this, a court official named Aku. This boy was related to somebody else who bought a title overseer of the fields. He was basically like into farming and stuff like that. He was not royalty. As evidence of his relationship, he cites the fact that Anku's mother was a woman named Anku's mother, okay, named Mary Tessie, who's posthumously given the title after her death, King's sister. You know how we are as a people. You know how we are. What we would do, we would when somebody passed, they kind of a friend to the family. So what we do, we take their children in. I think Amenemhat was one of those cases. Yes, indeed. Yeah, love child. Yeah, she got them beats, y'all. All right, but I think Amenemhat IV was one of those cases where Anku was a real cool guy. The king knew him and knew his family. He just brought him in. During her life, Mediteski bore no royal title, so she and her family had to have been of non-royal birth. So she was not a noble. They weren't viziers, nothing like that. They were not part of the royalty, but they were in and around that proximity. He was the overseer of the fields. Amenemhat, his father, he was an official, but he wasn't royalty. So Rahul goes on to propose that Sobekneferu was indeed the daughter of Amenemhat III, which was why the labyrinth she had commissioned had various inscriptions and card panels linking herself directly to her father, not her brother. Yep. And get this. While I'm reading, it's Anku's own career had begun as a temple scribe. He was a scribe. Anku, he was a scribe. So, of course, scribes had a lot of legal power, a lot of paperwork behind it, but they weren't royalty, right? So, when just as a young prince, he became a retainer to Amenemhat III. So, Anku was around when Amenemhat III's father was living. So Anku, I was okay. He was kind of important, but he wasn't royalty. But he took care of Amenemhat the third, the king's sister. That may have been, like one of the elders or whatever. But he watched him. He taught him. He was basically like a godfather. Anku was basically Amenemhat the third, the king, king father, his godfather. So Anku really, even though he was a scribe, he's very close to the royal family. He was a royalty, but he was part of the royal family, right? So as we're seeing that when Anku passed, when his mother was gone, what about this boy? What about Amenemhat the third? What about Amenemhat the fourth? What about him? What are we going to do? We just can't just put him out there like that. Okay, we're just going to take him in. I'm going to make him my son. I'm going to bring him in as my son. I'm going to train him. Yeah. That like that's my brother, but not by blood. Yeah, brother from another mother, literally, right? So in this case, Amenemhat the fourth was not royalty, but the king took him in. But that's very similar to another story. I think it's an Old Testament story where the Pharaoh took in somebody. All right. all right. So now, the fact that nowhere in the labyrinth or indeed any monument does Sobekneferu link herself to Amenemhat the Fourth has raised suspicions that she kind of fell out with him. She probably didn't really deal with him that much. But now her father's gone, her sister's gone. She's sure not going to really deal with him like that. Yeah. And so the manner in which Amenemhat the third is depicted let me go back on this panel here. Okay. On this design here, on this meta nature right here. Okay. It shows that he's the deified ancestor. Okay. We have Sobekneferu right here. We have Amenemhat with the Jed and the Ankh, which basically means eternity, okay? Eternal status or established forever, all right? So he is a deified ancestor, a living God, one now able to convey his divine blessings upon the true successor, his daughter, Sobekneferu. So you see, he's pointing the Ankh to her. He's basically crowning her. He's basically verifying or validating or affirming Sobekneferu and nobody else. And the fact that nowhere in the labyrinth, it shows that she didn't want to be affiliated with Amenemhat like that. It could be pointed out also that Amenemhat the fourth's name does not appear in the labyrinth at all. Whatever Sobekneferu had to do with anything, Amenemhat she didn't put that boy's name on anything. That also can give some kind of indication that he wasn't royalty like that. Okay. And get this, he may have been chosen to finish the work after Sobekneferu passed, but they ain't my family, so I'm gonna move on. Right? So the king's stepson, non-royal blood, yeah. We're gonna talk about the fall from grace, what happened to Sobekneferu and everybody around her. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that this May. Sibling rivalry. Yeah. Because we still are not clear as to what happened to Neferu Ptah. We're not clear about that. We're not clear on none of this. What we do know is that we're starting to see some movement going on. Some people were royalty, some people were not. Some people were crowned as king, but somehow didn't make it. Yeah, both siblings were probably, I would say, Neferu Ptah was Aat's child, but I really think Sobekneferu and Amenemhat may have been brother and sister. Okay, through Hatepi. We don't know though. We don't know for sure. Okay, we don't. Matter of fact, we don't even know if Amenemhat the fourth, the non-royal, with different parents. We don't know if he was older than Sobekneferu. We do know that Sobekneferu's father is Amenemhat the third, but the mother's still in question. Okay, all right. So we know, unfortunately, however, a lot of things have happened. A lot of things have changed. Of course, when Greece and Rome came to Egypt, they removed a lot of the markers. They rearranged the faces of the artifacts and everything. So it's possible that Amenemhat was older than both of them, so Sobekneferu and Neferu Ptah, but he was not royalty, right? So from all the evidence gathered, according to science and to archaeology, is that there was two reasons why Neferu Ptah became leader. She was older than Amenemhat the fourth, and she was born to Amenemhat the third and Aat, the queen mother. And bottom line, Amenemhat, and you know what? I think this also. I think the father knew that Amenemhat the fourth was not cut like that. He was not built to rule. He was not that person. I think somebody mentioned in the chat before that Amenemhat saw his stepson. He wasn't strong enough. I think that. I think that his son his father watched him over the years and said, "No, he's not. He can't rule by himself. He can't do it." Okay, and so, but get this though, his father's not. Amenemhat the third is gone, and up until this point, Sobekneferu was not in the picture as far as being ruler as of yet. So now we have factions involved because remember that Sobekneferu had to have a special festival to make sure she would be traditionally recognized. So whoever these people were, they was part of the system. And they wanted to make sure the transition of power was solid. And so Sobekneferu's claim to the throne would have been obscure in nature, but she would have been seen as substituting. She may have been the substitute for the ruler and not the ruler. So now she had to, I believe Sobekneferu really had to put matters in her own hands. Yeah, so those kings and queens know if their heir were fit to take the top role or not. You're right. Now I think Neferu Ptah was fit to rule, but she didn't live long enough. And Amenemhat, he wasn't ready. He may have been older, but he wasn't ready and he wasn't legit. And then Sobekneferu was over here. What happened to all of them? Was Sobekneferu? Now I got a question though. Was Sobekneferu involved in any of this? Did she? Because remember, she aligned herself with the factions of Sobek and all that. She was with the priest a lot. She already had that. She already had the religious and spiritual people in her back pocket. Do you think she had a hand in not only her maybe? Well, I wouldn't say her father's death, but definitely we think she had a hand with her sister's death. Because she didn't even get in that spot. So how might Sobekneferu have become convinced that she herself was destined to rule? She must have had a vision or something. She must have had an idea. He said, I'm thinking about doing some research on the health of these particular women. Yeah, because they did die young. They did die young. But what was it? Because we got the old man over here, the father, he ruled 45 years and everybody else died in their 20s and 30s. Yeah, it may be health. It may have been health. Yeah, it may have been health. But that's crazy. That's crazy. So Sobekneferu either directly or indirectly responsible to the death of her sister, the woman whose shoes she would step into immediately upon the ascension of Amenemhat IV. Because remember, we said that Neferu Ptah was supposed to marry Amenemhat IV, who was not royalty. Royalty was marrying non-royalty, and Sobekneferu was over there. By taking her out, basically by right, she would be in that spot next. Yeah. And so all we can say, according to the author, all we can say for sure is that he was entered. Amenemhat, the king father, okay, after 45 years, okay, he was buried away from everybody. He got on everybody's nerves. Everybody died young, but he said, "Look, I'm gonna get away from everybody." Wow. So he's not even where he's supposed to be at. And so when Neferu Ptah now out of the picture, the death of Amenemhat III saw the ascension to the throne of his stepson, the son of Heptepi. According to the Turin canon, he would go to reign for 9 years and 3 months, 27 days. The first year or two forming a part of a co-regency with his father. Some scholars believe that Sobekneferu married her brother or whoever this random person is. Okay, some scholars believe that and became his royal wife. And so they ruled. I believe they was tough. So they ruled out of fear and respect, right? So Sobekneferu, if she had that power, and had she been a complete outsider and just chilling with the priesthood, she just so happened to take the throne because she was the last person left standing in the royal dynasty, then there would be no way she could have achieved that she did by herself. She didn't act alone. According to the author, she did not act alone. Okay. What is more, she must have successfully fought off many challenges to reign. So that's where that name Sobek come in. Okay, you talked about it a while ago about the kings and priests getting into it and knowing their roles, but also the queens and the women priests. The priests were very knowledgeable and had people. They sure did, and a lot of influence. Because I think there was something that religiously happened and it went wrong. Yeah, I said it. I said I did. I read ahead. I did. I read ahead, and I think what happened to Sobekneferu, I think there was something religious that was supposed to take place, but it went wrong. Yeah. So she had to. But in order for her to even take that seat, she had to successfully fight off many challenges to reign through sheer determination. Because I think that she really believed she was going to be a pharaoh, regardless of who's in power. I think her aspirations and her mindset was different, and she was really focused on that seat. Yeah, the priest did have people behind them, and they had a lot of resources. Okay, because we talked about there's different cults and different factions, and the priests got into it with priests too. They weren't all holding books in their hand and just with their head up or eyes closed meditating. They got active because the priests of Amun had their own guard. They had their own military. Think about it. A priesthood having their own military. They can do anything at any time. Yeah. What may have happened to Sobekneferu, a sacrifice or ritual? I don't know, because she, according to what we're reading, she was really into the esoteric. She was into spirituality and things like that. So she was trained to be a priestess. Yeah, she had aspirations to be pharaoh because it was her spot. But I think she went too far into that. And I think she looked too far. You know how you look into the sun too long, you may go blind. You see what I'm saying? So yeah, I think it may have been, but we'll talk about that. We'll get into that. And so, according to the author, he's quoting Kim Ryholt. He talked about Sobekneferu's attitude towards her own brother. Okay, he sees their relationship, particularly at the end of his reign, somewhat disharmonious. It was isfet. There was no ma'at between the siblings. There were no peace and harmony between them. That's reality. This last statement stems. He says it was seen, therefore, Sobekneferu usurped the throne from the heirs of Amenemhat. In other words, his two sons. So Amenemhat IV had two sons, and they was supposed to be next after Amenemhat IV, who was the royal stepson, right? They were supposed to be next. He said, "No, forget all that. I'm running it." So this may reflect dissatisfaction on her behalf with the adoption as co-regent of a man who was not part of her family. So Sobekneferu stood on business. This dude was not, the king, my father may like him, but I don't like him. Yeah. And I really believe Sobekneferu, she was serious about that. You hear that. Talking about the, daughter of her father, her father's daughter. And she always connected herself with her father and nobody else. Not even with her sister. Yeah. And so dealing with the ritual, dealing with some of the things she deal with later on in her life. Yeah, she may have flew too close to the sun. Yeah, Miss Blue. She may have did that. Yeah, she may have did that. But we're going to find out. All right. So she was dissatisfied with her brother. Okay, this dissatisfaction experienced by Sobekneferu that the archaeologist feels came from the fact that Amenemhat IV was of non-royal blood, could have derived from somewhere else altogether. Okay, what then might have been what might have been the problem? One possibility is that it stemmed from the fact that Sobekneferu's half sister, Neferu Ptah, had been chosen above her to rule the two lands alongside of her brother. But we got to be honest though. Neferu Ptah father was pharaoh for real, and her mother Aat was queen, was the queen mother. Okay, so Flawed Vision. Some Egyptologists, well versed in political situations during the reigns of Amenemhat and his sister, have offered some distressing realizations in the state of the country, and the thing is, however, the royal palace, how they were moving, how they were acting, it was very similar to how Kemet was acting at the time. So if you think the royal palace or the royal family was in turmoil towards the end of the 12th dynasty, all of Kemet was in turmoil. Think about that. Okay? So as we saw in chapter 7, those groups, those factions, known to the Egyptians as the Amu and the Retinue, had begun to settle in areas in the Nile Delta. These were foreigners. These were foreigners from Syria and Palestine. These boys were setting up camp on the outskirts of Kemet. So there was internal issues that was going on, and there was some foreigners that was moving their way closer and closer to Egypt. So by the time that Amenemhat IV took the throne, Egypt's Western Asiatic population had become heavily Egyptianized, having established themselves in large communities, mostly north of the country. Okay, they were in the Nile Delta area. They were in that region, the Mediterranean region. Amenemhat would have appeared to have actively supported Egypt's open border policy, and Sobekneferu didn't like that. Yeah, you may be cool with these foreigners, but I'm not. You may be all right with them. That's so we have another issue. We have another issue. Sobekneferu was already into it with this guy, with this boy who her father took in. He's saying he about to be pharaoh, but he's not born into royalty. Then he over here politicking with some random people who are foreigners. Nah. Yeah, she didn't like that. She didn't like that. Yeah, she this by him fraternizing and him being cool. Yes, sir. House divided. Yeah. Think about it. You're trying to reestablish yourself as an empire, and this non-royal person who the king liked is over there emailing this foreign country. The sister didn't like that. Unfortunately, this situation would appear to have led to weakening of control of the Eastern Delta due to a steadily growing influx of Western Asiatic people into the region. Yeah, house divided. Coinciding with this situation was a sharp decline of monumental building construction, with the last big pyramid city being that of Amenemhat. So you focused over here with these foreigners trying to be cool with them, but you're not building the infrastructure here. You're not setting precedents here. Okay, so the pyramid city would include the labyrinth. So you're not even concerned with your so-called father's legacy. Yeah, true enough, true indeed. Yeah, house divided. So this dude here, who's not born royalty, over here doing diplomatic stuff, but you're not respecting the ancestors. That's basically what it is. Yeah. That's what it was. So, as for Amenemhat, because once again, all this was happening. The father died. Sister is gone. Okay, but I really think that before father passed away, the co-regency of Amenemhat the fourth was starting to be in place, right? And so she didn't like the way he was moving. So he began patronizing religious cults in regions heavily occupied by Semitic-speaking people. Something noted by Italian Egyptologist Stefania Paginatari. Stefania points out that the king would appear to have taken great interest in a cult center of Heliopolis, or another word for Anu or Inu, or in Hebrew, On or On. This is the home. This is the home of the predecessor of the creator god Atum, a form of Ra, the sun god, throughout the 11th and 12th dynasties. So these people were occupying a space, a sacred space that was designated for one of the older Neteru. And these random folks showing up and basically eating at grandma in them house and had no respect for grandma. That's what they were doing. And then the stepson was cool with it. He was cool with it. Okay, so and Heliopolis became a place of considerable interest to the foreign Hyksos. Remember, these people from Asia was occupying these spaces along the Nile Delta, occupying these spaces in the north. They was really positioning themselves. I think at first they was kind of just migrating and and chilling out, but they realized that they can actually infiltrate Egypt. But how would they do that? They would do it through the spiritual system. Let's take on their language. Let's take on their customs. And the stepson thought it was all right. And saying so, aside from the Egyptian Neteru, Seth, and Sutek, which they adopted as their principal god at Everest, John Van Setters writes that its kings, the Hyksos kings, built a close association with the worship of Ra, Heraki, the chief deity of Heliopolis. So they did some amalgamation, some mixtures of the Canaanite beliefs, and they put them in with the Egyptian beliefs. While in the contemporary accounts of the Hyksos king, Apopus is referred to as the beloved son of Ra. So their kings are all, bro. Think about it. Think if you were Sobekneferu's, if you were in Sobekneferu's shoes, you're hearing that these folk not only taking on your culture, but they're taking on your titles too. You know what's about to be next. You know what's about to be next. Yeah. You start talking about beloved son of Ra, the living image, and all this kind of thing. That is only designated for the Insubiti, the Simatawi, the king of the north and south, not some random person from the Mediterranean. I said what I said. So Amenemhat's interest in the god Atum can be seen, for instance, in his Sphinx, the way he was designed himself in the Sphinx. I think I had this picture here. And so an inscription on in his breast between the forelegs read Ma'akaru Ra, Amenemhat IV's throne name, Ma'akaru Ra, living forever, beloved of Atum, Lord of Heliopolis. That the king should prioritize Atum above any other Neteru is very telling indeed, and it confirms that he bore very little interest in Sobek. So his religious ideology was different than Sobekneferu's too. He was cool with these foreigners, your stepson, and you go to a different church. Man, this boy, he can't take a break. He can't. In addition to the veneration of Atum, Amenemhat IV, the stepson would appear to have paid particular interest to the Neteru Kinti Kiti, the principal cult at Tel Aviv, that's situated along the Nile Delta, the southern part of the Delta region. So his whole mentality was not in Thebes. His mindset was not in Memphis or even Thebes, Memphis, or even where Ptah is. He was up there. His mind was in the Nile Delta. Because remember, the seat of power was in two places. I think he was trying to make a different place too. It was either in Memphis or Amenemhat or Waset or in Thebes. And this dude was trying to move his kind of focus his attention along the Nile Delta, and his sister wasn't having that. And the archaeologist Stephania makes clear that Amenemhat, or the stepson's choice to patronize these Neteru, was not simply down to come to a random act of devotion, but it was basically a strategic leaping point to get from Egypt to the Sinai area. So he was trying to flex a little bit. He was trying. Okay. So Sobekneferu, what was Sobekneferu's attitude about that? She didn't like none of that at all. Sobekneferu and in the Western Asiatic situation, she was not for none of that. She wasn't for the Hyksos people coming out here. She wasn't for them taking on her culture. She wasn't for them taking on her language or even her title. She wasn't for that. Her attitude during her own reign was seen to be greatly different than her brother. She stopped all communication with them. Yeah, the work and the mining operation in the Sinai Peninsula stopped. Yeah, she didn't fool with the foreigners. She didn't mess with them. It suggests a complete change in policy regarding the cooperation extended up until the time of the Western Asiatic population in the north. So her brother, who ruled for 9 years and some change, her brother may have been okay with these foreigners occupying these spaces. He was okay with the Hyksos and all them occupying Egypt in certain places. And even, her brother was okay with them taking on titles, but she was not. She wasn't good with that at all. Okay. John Van Seters in his important study of the events leading up to the Hyksos rule, because remember, when Sobekneferu died, when she died, the 13th dynasty, the intermediate period, that was when the Hyksos actually took over. She saw it coming. She saw it happening. And so the brother was in good relationship with him, but Sobekneferu, she didn't like him that much. She didn't like him that much. So there was some issues between them. The author says, I think it's safe to say that the advisors working alongside the stepson, Amenemhat, would not have been on the same page as Sobekneferu as potential co-ruler, whether in an official capacity or otherwise. She would have expected to be consulted regarding to any policy decisions. So they didn't like the idea of Sobekneferu, who didn't like this foreign policy, who didn't like all these things going on, to be co-ruler. So this was clearly not happening. We can understand her growing concerns in respect, especially when all these people are showing up and doing all these things, right? And taking all these titles. It was her birthright not only to rule two lands, but to uphold the principles of Ma'at. Okay. And so think about it. Amenemhat, during the kings of the 13th dynasty, after they're gone, stayed loyal to the memory of their immediate predecessors, Sobekneferu and her father. They kept Ijatawi as capital while at the same time tightening their relations with the cult of Amun, making Waset their second capital. Its kings also continued to see Sobek of Shadet as one of their most important deities, with no less than of the 7 rulers bearing the name Sobek Hotep. So a lot of them took on that title, but while she was alive, she didn't care about none of that. Sobekneferu, believing that it was her destiny to wear the double crown of Upper and Lower Egypt, there was good reason to suspect she was now siding with Egyptian nationalists plotting to overthrow her brother. Yep. There was a plot to overthrow her brother. Yeah. So before we get into that, we're gonna do roll call. I told you we're gonna get into it. Roll call. All right, here it is. Yeah, we're gonna talk about that overthrow at another time. Yeah, we're gonna get into that though. All right. So roll call. Here it is. Let me see. One Voice Africa. Shout out to One Voice Africa. Now, if you're here, you type in here. Fabric 86, Ali 9532. Shout out to the fam. We're doing a roll call. The Kamoyo King. Shout out to Kamoyo King. Theo B. We had a good time. We need to bring Theo B back. Grand Madam Tarot. Bolana. Mo. Shout out to Brother Mo. Ancient Divinations. Alicia Thomas. Suave Sinatros. Shout out to him. Library Without Borders. Yeah, Library Without Borders, really good. Shout out to the fam in Canada. Joy Toya, Progress Maker 09, Miss Blue, Kiara Haynes, all right, Jay Williams, Kinsu, Jennifer Tatum. These people have added value to these last few months and joined the fam recently. General Bunches, Comedic Nation. Yeah, speaking of Comedic Nation, they're coming back too. Yeah, they're coming back too. We're gonna bring them on back. So I'm excited about that. We're gonna bring them back. So shout out to Comedic Nation. What's going on? Yeah, we just got through talking about we are gonna bring back the comic book fam, Rock With Me Nation. This is gonna be interesting. I got some more questions. Yeah. So Sobekneferu was about their life. Let me see. Who else is here? Okay, very good. Present, more present. Yeah, I said type here. Y'all saying present. Y'all been difficult, like me. All right, so Comedic Nation, we are gonna bring back Comedic Nation, I think next May. Sister Linda, Yaya Sabaka, Tony B. Shelton, Clark Nation Supreme, Pauline, TikTok Dance Challenge, Scott Gillum, and Zep Teppy Slim. If you are present and I didn't call your name, like and comment here. And special shout out Books a Million. Okay, if you like books, check them out. Love Me Hair, Beauty Stat, Ethiopian Airlines, QVR International, and Unice. The affiliate links are in the description. Enjoy. Okay, this is our book. Okay, the First Female Pharaoh, Sobekneferu, Goddess of the Seven Stars. Yeah, the link is in the description. And next week, yeah, we're going to get in to this story, Nekhbet and Wajet. Nekhbet and Wajet. It gets interesting. All right. So we are gonna delve into a little bit more the symbolism and the symbolic thought and mythology of ancient Kemet. Okay. And yep, something happened to Neferu Ptah. Something happened to her and to the stepson. Is it regicide? Yeah. Was some other people involved? Yeah, we're gonna get into that. It gets different around here. The more I read, the more I realize these people they move different. We already know Sobekneferu wasn't playing, but what happened to her also? That's the question. All right. So we discussed chapters 10 through 15 of the book, the seed of destruction, the mystery of the magical formula. All right, the king's daughters, the king's choice, his stepson. And before we go, do you guys have any questions? Before we go, do we have any questions? Before I turn you loose, do you guys have any questions? I really like to thank you guys for coming. And if you enjoyed it, if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to share with somebody that may like it too. And share it to your social media platform of choice. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button, subscribe, do all the things. Yeah, because we are about to go further into detail because this was some serious business here. Think about it. So Sobekneferu wasn't playing. She wasn't playing. Yeah, just sucking up the knowledge. And thank you. Yeah, thank you for coming. Appreciate it. Okay, question. We have a question. Do Africans now look at us as foreigners like they did back then? Some do. I'm not going to even lie to you. Some do. Some do. And so we have to understand that. But on the flip side, as we can see, some of us, we treat them like that. But the difference is, I think the difference between the Hyksos and the people of Kemet is just flat out how their language was different and their skin color was different. So, because they did, I don't have the illustration with me, but they did actually, I think it was either Tutmosis the third or Ramses the third. I forgot. They actually illustrated how these different people groups how they looked. Yeah. And so they had the Nubians, darker, brown skin. They had the Kemetic people, dark, brown skin, and the Asiatics, light. So the question: how can we approach this situation with understanding? With understanding, we have to understand that we all coming from different backgrounds and different situations. We have to be kind. We have to be respectful. Okay, and sometimes everybody's not going to roll with you. We cannot force ourselves on people, just like they can't force themselves on us. Okay, and also we can approach it by doing the best we can all the time, being peaceful, being respectful. We can disagree, but we don't have to be violently disagreeable. We don't have to be the ones that crash out, to be the ones that's always disrespectful or out of pocket. You see what I'm saying? And I think that was what was happening. The Hyksos people were not only occupying this space, they were occupying sacred spaces, and it was taking on sacred names too. Yeah. So I'd rather ask and find out than keep a closed mouth and not know. Yeah. You got to know. Got to ask questions. But the thing is, there is a couple 100-year difference. But one thing that does unite us is our point of origin. Okay, the Hyksos did not originally come from Kemet like that. Okay, so our point of origin is totally different. The origin story is different. But it's amazing. Think about when I mentioned earlier how Hatshepsut, she paid homage to Sobekneferu that passed 350 years before her. Okay. And here we are. The United States is not even 350 years yet. Egypt was a 5,000 plus year empire. And the Hyksos kind of came technically in the middle, but they was kicked out in about another 100 years or so. Yeah. And that when the Hyksos was removed, when the Asiatic or the Asian people were removed from Egypt, that's when you had the new golden age. That's when you had then you had the Queen Tai and Amenemhat the second and all and the third and all them, King Tut and all them. That was the dawn of that dynasty. Okay. I think if my memory serves me correct, I think it's the 18th dynasty. Yeah. So, but yeah, I really appreciate you guys coming. And yeah, we're gonna. And yes, I do have one of my shirts. Yeah, I do have it. This one's Conversation with King Cam. Check it out. Yeah. I decided to put a shirt on, so put this one on. So, but I really appreciate you guys coming. And if you don't be afraid, don't make yourself a stranger. We just got through talking about the unknown daughter of Pharaoh. And oh, I forgot. In the book, he did say that Amenemhat III had other daughters, but Neferu Ptah was his oldest daughter. He had other daughters, man. But we know about the mother. We know the stepson, but he's technically not royalty at all. But you listen to King Cam Ujumbe Podcast. Ujumbe means message, and we talked about the unknown daughter of Pharaoh, blood feud, and the rise of a random. All right, y'all. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share it with somebody. And I will talk to you later. All right. Peace.